Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome inside RX New York Studios here in New York on Long Island. This is Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This show, as always, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. As we bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, your episode of Iron Rage with John Romano yesterday, a bit of a follow-up to the initial reaction to what's being known as Slapgate, that generating quite a lot of response, some feedback, some fans not quite in agreement with John Romano. He surely brought it yesterday.
Yeah, before I talk about that, I wanted to just say one thing. A lot of people have been emailing me and texting me, what's wrong with the sound? What's wrong with the, quality of the shows recently? And let me just tell you something. When I was a kid, my dad used to have this little closet in his little study where he used to write all his novels and stuff like that. And I used to go in there and hide in the closet. I feel like I'm filming, Johnny and I are filming basically from my dad's closet, okay? We have no room here. It's like the camera's like almost on top of my face. The lighting is terrible in here. It's like these old fluorescent lights from 1975. So, we're handicapped a little bit. And hopefully, once this real studio is built, God knows when that's going to be because permits suck down here. Everything will get better, I promise you. So, we're trying to do our best right now, and we're kind of experimenting with different setups. We're going to try something new for next week, so we'll see if it works better. But getting back to the slap heard around the world, I call it the Greek slap heard around the world. 2 weeks ago when Giannis Magos smacked the MC after he didn't like the placing he got, people were outraged. People were saying how, this is terrible, and ban the guy. They're going to ban him for life. And John Romano had a different opinion, and I kind of think he's right. Look, the guy got upset in the heat of the action. It was a bad sportsmanship. Absolutely, it was bad sportsmanship. But the guy had beat the other guy the day before, and he was pissed off, and he lost his mind. And John's opinion was, and I don't know if I'm 100% behind it because I don't really think you should put your hands on anyone, but he's like, if someone hits you, get up and hit him back harder, basically. And John kind of, equated that to the whole, I guess, basically he calls it pussification of America. Everyone's afraid to do anything violent. Everything has to be politically correct. And I think people are sick of it already. John's sick of it. Donald Trump was sick of it, and that's how he won the election, basically. And so John's like, look, this is not unheard of. Back in the day, guys would fight all the time at shows. Doesn't mean it makes it right, but should the guy be banned for life? I think I happen to agree with John. I think he should get a suspension, but it should not be for life. We're right now working on getting Giannis Magos on the show to interview him and find out what went on in his head. What caused him to lose his temporary have that temporary lapse of sanity, because he really did lose it, and I'm sure once I interview him, he's going to have a completely different take on the whole subject. So that should be an interesting interview. I don't know when we're going to make that happen, but we did reach out to him, and I know his coach has said he's interested in coming on the show. So hopefully, Sid, that could be the interview of the year, maybe.
Well, when you consider just how wide and popular this topic has been, it has reached mainstream media, all the mainstream blogs, Rolling Stone, Vice, Deadspin, generally dedicated to, I guess, more mainstream sports. They've all been all over this topic. So to update you, we are working on getting an interview with Giannis Magos. As Dave just said, his coach has confirmed to us that he is willing to come on the show. So we're trying to work out the logistics, trying to work out with the time difference. We're not quite sure if he speaks English fluently. So if we need to arrange for a Greek translator, we'll do so. But again, if we get that, you'll be the first to know. Let's get to the questions. If you want to ask a question.
To say one more thing. First of all, I think he speaks English because I heard him yelling at the judges in English. So I think he does speak English. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But, we shouldn't have announced it because now Bleckman is going to go and try to sign the guy probably. Yeah, I'll make you a star. I'll put you on the cover. The question is, who will be more popular, the synthol guy or the slap guy? That's going to be, of all the interviews we did this year, which one will get more hits? I don't know. It might be close.
Synthol guy, for those not aware, his name is Kenny ONeal, the one who competed at a show in Canada, had the deformed shoulders, became a viral sensation overnight. We got him on the show 2-3 days later. That episode has been the second most watched episode in 2016 on RxMuscle.com. Now, we go to the questions. If you want to join us, you can join us on the Muscle Central forum on RxMuscle.com. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we ask that you hit the subscribe button below, like this episode, and ask your question on the chat box to the right-hand side, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Let's go to UK Wildcat. Dave, what is the best free testosterone to estradiol ratio?
Well, it's not really a ratio. There's acceptable values. From a U.S. perspective, the testosterone range, the normal range is 250 to 800 or 850 or so. So I always say anything over 800 is great. Obviously the estrogen ratio, I think the normal is up to 40 or something like that. Or so you want your estrogen under 40. So you don't want to be too low in estrogen. The problem is if you go super low in estrogen, then you don't grow well, you don't have a sex drive, and you just don't respond well to training. You need some estrogen in your body to sensitize your androgen receptors. If you go too high on estrogen, you're going to get gynecomastia, you're going to get fluid retention, you're going to get all kinds of female fat deposition, in the body. So we want estrogen in the normal range, and we want testosterone as high as possible, obviously, because the more testosterone, the better, to a certain degree, obviously. So there's really no ratio of one to the other. It's just what the normal ranges are.
Let's go to GCT 20,000. Dave, hate this show. What is the best protocol for clenbuterol usage for fat loss?
Sid, we get this question at least every other show probably, and I guess a lot of people have told me. There's one guy who I communicate with a lot on email, and he's like, I started watching the shows like maybe 2 weeks ago, and he's almost watched every show already. I don't even know how many we've done so far, but it took him like 2 weeks of watching every night, every single hour of the night, basically, these shows. And I probably answered the clenbuterol question a million times. I like to start with 20 micrograms of clenbuterol twice a day, separated by about 2-3 hours. And I like to build up and add 20 micrograms every 2 to 3 weeks as necessary. And I suggest never going over 120 micrograms a day, and always take them in separate dosages. So you would do 20 micrograms, say 6 times a day. When you're done taking your stuff and you want to taper off it, usually take 2 weeks to taper off it. Come down to 20 micrograms again twice a day for a week, and then come down to 20 micrograms per day for a week, and then go off. So it's a taper up and it's a quick taper down, and that seems to work pretty effectively.
Hi, Dave. In an insulin syringe, how much would 1 IU of HG if I reconstitute the GH from the Humatrope cartridge with the water that came with the GH instead of using the Humatrope device? I have 12 mg in parentheses 36 IU.
I love how people give me homework assignments. Like, I have to do the mathematics for you guys. Didn't anyone take math in school? If you have 36 IUs of GH, okay, in a powdered bottle, and you add 1 ml of water, okay, 1 ml could be divided into 10 sections. So if you have an insulin syringe that goes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, every tenth of that would be, you divide by 10. So if it's 36 IUs, each tenth of a cc or 10 units is 3.6 IUs. It's simple math. If you want to take half of that, 1.8 IUs, you take 5 units on an insulin syringe. So it's simple mathematics, okay? If you put 2 cc's of water in the bottle, it's going to be half as much. So you're going to have to use double. So if you want to get 3.6 IUs, you have to use 20 units on an insulin syringe. So the water is just diluting it. Insulin syringes don't measure insulin. They don't measure GH units, they measure insulin units. So because insulin is already reconstituted, and they reconstitute it perfectly, and they sell it perfectly so that you can measure it using an insulin syringe. So once again, it's just simple mathematics. 36 IUs, add up a cc of water, each tenth of a cc, 3.6 IUs of GH.
Let's go to Giuseppe Fragomeni. Dave, this show really sucks. Do you think there is any advantage of using test suspension or trend suspension before you train weak body parts?
No. Remember, steroids, even the fast-acting ones that might be suspended in water, which, look, whenever you put a steroid in water, whether it be Winstrol suspension or testosterone suspension, I didn't even know they had Trenbolone suspension, but I guess you can suspend anything in water. Once you put it in water, it's always more, there's a much greater prevalence of getting an infection, okay? Because bacteria grow easily in water. as opposed to oil. They just divide much quicker. So I don't like suspension. It hurts more, much higher incidence of infection, and it irritates the area you inject. And even the fastest acting, steroid like test suspension, it's not going to help you grow better, okay, if you take it on a weekday. It's like the guy who says, I got weak arms. I had a friend like this, weak arms. Every arm day he would eat 4 million grams of carbs thinking that he's going to grow bigger arms. And all he did was get fat doing that. So steroids take a long time to work. It's not like you take a shot of heroin and you're freaking whacked out of your mind. That's not how steroids work. That's why steroids don't kill you. No one ever took a shot of steroids and dropped dead 10 minutes later because they OD'd on it. That's not how they work. They're slow acting, type of it's a slow acting, type of a hormone. It's not like insulin where you take a shot and your blood sugar can drop in 2 minutes. That's just not how it works. A lot of people have been asking me, Sid, about, the protocols, insulin and GH and Clenbuterol. And you know what? Instead of, constantly asking me these questions on here, and I don't mind answering them, if you want a great resource for all these type of protocols and how to mix things and stuff like that, I have an app, and I've talked about it before. It's called the Dave Palumbo Experience. It's $29 a month. You go to the iTunes store or the Android store. You download it to your phone. It's constantly being updated every day with new content, new workouts. I do an exclusive Q&A just for the app once a week. We put up all my articles I've ever written, all the videos I've ever done in one concise place, organized, okay, so that you can find things that you're looking for. It's a great resource, and it's always evolving and getting better every day. So it's not the kind of thing you subscribe to once and you get all the information. Every day there's new stuff being put up. If you're really an information hound like I am, and that I was growing up, and you want something that you can constantly really depend on to know that the information is right and it's not just bull crap or bro science, I highly recommend it. It's a cheap solution. It's better than a gym membership. For $29 a month, you get unlimited access to me essentially on there. And you can ask questions too. You submit questions and I answer them every week. So guys, check it out. Instead of having to ask questions and really not get the answers that you're looking for, here's something you can go to 24 hours a day and check on.
You're watching Ask Steve on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. A reminder, check out our Facebook page. Just this past weekend, Johnny and Dave were at the San Marino Pro, and they live stream a portion of the Guru Seminar. And the full video of that, Dave, you want to talk a little bit more about that? It had Rich Gaspari, it had, I believe, Sean Ray and Dennis James moderating. That video is going to be up soon on RxMuscle.com. Why don't you tell the fans a little bit more about that session?
Yeah, that was Flex Wheeler was on the panel, Dexter Jackson, Sean Roden, Richie Gaspari, of course, who was my only ally on the panel, and everyone basically just went after me, which was great because it made the thing interesting. I thought I wasn't even going to talk because Dennis James was moderating. He was asking Dexter about his career and how he got started and how long he's going to continue to grow. He was asking Flex Wheeler. I'm like, oh, good. You know what? I'm not going to have to answer any questions. And then all the Levrone questions came, because of my prediction of him winning. And then it was nonstop. It became the Dave Palumbo seminar, which really was stupid because it was a legend seminar. All these guys were legends, and there was a lot of information that they talked about their career. But it became like a debate about what I thought about Kevin Levrone. I'm not going to reveal anything because I want you to watch it. I know Johnny filmed most of it, but basically everyone teamed up on me because I predicted Levrone would win. And then when he didn't win and he looked terrible and I criticized him, people thought that I wasn't being a true friend to him. And I basically had to explain that, hey, I'm in the media here. The media, as a media agent, as a journalist, I have to report the truth. Whether it hurts his feelings or not, I told the truth. And I might have been a little bit aggressive in the truth in saying that, look, I thought my legs could be better than Kevin's if I trained them for 4 weeks, because Kevin lied to us, basically. So it has nothing to do with how I feel about Kevin, and I'm sure if Kevin and I were in a room together, we'd probably go to dinner and have a good time. But the bottom line was that, everyone was insulted. Once again, it goes back to what Romano and I were talking about yesterday. Everyone is so politically correct in this environment. It's nauseating almost. And, as Joan Rivers would say, I'm barfing. Guys, stop being so sensitive about everything, okay? I'm not your enemy here. I'm the guy here who's just calling it like I see it. If you don't agree with me, don't watch the channel. Don't listen to what I have to say. But I think a lot of people respect what I say because they know it is the truth most of the time.
Let's go back to the questions and continue on our YouTube channel and check in with Jean-Pierre Ferrer. Dave, your thoughts on natural insulin mimickers supplements? Do you believe in them, and are there any solid products in your opinion?
Here's the problem, guys. Most, and I've said this before, most people spend all their money on crap that they don't need, and they don't buy the stuff that they do need. If you're not taking a good, high-quality multivitamin, multi-mineral formula, if you're not taking an extra 5,000 units of vitamin D a day, if you're not taking an essential fatty acid supplement, and you don't have to use V-Mineralize and Omega-Lize that I sell, I don't care if you do or not. I know that they're dosed properly with high-quality ingredients, and they're all in a nice month supply. Whatever the case may be, if you're not using those three products as well as a fiber supplement, a dual fiber supplement with soluble and insoluble fiber, and you're buying other crap before that, you're wasting your money, okay? Because if you want to have maximum muscle building and muscle repair, if you want to have maximal fat burning in your body, you've got to give your body the cofactors it needs to go along with the food that you're eating and the shakes you're drinking. If you're not doing that, you're wasting money. If you're worried about insulin mimickers and intra-workout shakes and pre-workout stuff and God knows what energy pills, amino acids, branch chains, that's fine if you have the essential stuff already taken care of. But if you have a limited amount of money you're spending and you're wasting it on crap like that, you're dumb. You're dumb, and you're basically a sheep, okay, that's been taken advantage of by a marketing industry. People who are marketing products that cost very little to make but have very high profit margins. I sell supplements, believe me, I want your money too. But I'd rather sell you stuff that you need, okay, before I sell you stuff that you don't. And I'm going to tell you what that is. And I have stuff that I sell. You don't need my protein pudding. But if you want something to taste good and it's a little different, you'll buy that. But you shouldn't buy my protein pudding before you get the multivitamin and multi-mineral, because that's more important. So do you need an insulin mimicker? No, of course not. And if you have extra money, you want to spend it, and you have high blood sugars because maybe it runs in your family, it might not be a bad idea. But if your blood sugars are running high, probably you need something a little stronger than a natural insulin mimicker, okay? But having said that, very few people fit into that category. But once again, it's one of these products. You put cinnamon extract in there, and you can charge a lot of money for it because it sounds great. Insulin mimetic. You know, what a great term that is. It's so sexy and appealing. I want an insulin mimetic, right? I can help my insulin work better. And really what you're paying for is cinnamon, okay? Go to the store and buy some cinnamon and sprinkle it on your oatmeal in the morning, you know? No disrespect to anyone who makes it, but I just think that too many people waste their money on products that they don't even need when they don't even buy the stuff that they do need.
Let's go to Brandon Good. Dave, myself and many other guys have big issues with lower back pumps, especially with orals and during off season. Anything you can do to prevent it?
Well, you know, there's two reasons why people might have lower back pain. I've found, at least, assuming you didn't get into a car accident or something like that and hurt yourself directly. A lot of times guys retain an exorbitant amount of water. I remember after a show once I gained like 30 pounds like in 2 days, and the lower back pumps were unbelievable. Really what was happening is I was retaining a ridiculous amount of fluid in my body. And when I took a little bit of a diuretic and got rid of it, the pain went away. So I don't know why someone would be getting that, but if it's a rebound off a show or maybe a rebound off a carb restriction, then that can be taken care of with even an herbal diuretic like Aqualize that I sell can work to solve that, or I have a diazide. If it's something that's chronically happening, then we have to address what's causing it. Is it muscular or is it fluid retention? Once again, if you take a little bit of a diuretic and it goes away, then we know it's fluid retention. It could be high estrogen levels in the body. You might want to take an aromatase inhibitor, get rid of some of that estrogen, or maybe cut your carb intake back. That right away will knock out the water retention. You don't retain fluid when your carbs are lower. If it is muscular in nature, where you're pulling your back from doing squats or any kind of movements like for back, you know, bent over rows, etc., then you might want to address the biomechanics of your body. That means the alignment of your body. And what aligns your body better than anything? Your feet. Your feet are the first things to touch the ground. And if your feet are not perfect, the alignment of your spine is off. And when your alignment of your spine is off, you strain your back, you can strain your groin, all kinds of your knees even. And what will fix that better than anything? I've mentioned it before. custom orthotics. That's custom inserts that go into your shoes that correct your arch support. Most chiropractors, podiatrists really are the people to go get done, but I know a lot of chiropractors that do it. You step in a mold, or they'll mold your feet. They send it to a lab. They can detect your arch deficit. They create a rigid plastic insert. It goes into your shoes. They're very comfortable. You wear them all the time. You wear them when you train. You wear them when you're walking around. And what happens is it corrects the biomechanics of your body. It realigns your spine properly. And no matter how much weight you put on your back, it's not going to misalign your spine because your feet are stuck. They got this rigid insert underneath them, holding them in the right position. I wear them. Most bodybuilders wear them. All professional athletes wear them. It's worth the investment.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. If you're not following us on Instagram, our handle is official_RxMuscle, all one word. Let's go to Jalubi. Dave, how important is form and range of motion in gaining muscle? How come I see so many big dudes swinging weight and doing quarter, half reps, yet they look amazing?
Genetics, genetics, genetics. Ronnie Coleman had some of the worst form I've ever seen in my life. Branch Warren is very sloppy in his form, okay? Don't imitate people who do things wrong, because sometimes people do things wrong and succeed despite themselves, I always like to say. What does that mean? That means that even though they're doing something wrong, they still get the best results that they're looking for. And that's just because maybe they're a genetic freak. Anything they do will build muscle, okay? If you have a weak body part, or any body part you're training, if you use good form, full range motion, you're always going to get better results than if you cheat and are sloppy. If you cheat and you're sloppy, you're going to probably wind up injuring yourself more than anything. Okay, that's the biggest, I guess you could say, detriment to doing that. However, I've never seen anyone who has great form, okay, who has full range of motion, who have not succeeded. You know what I'm saying? I was a stickler. My form was so strict that when I would bench press, even up as high as 405 in the incline, people would come running over and try to take the weight and help me. And I'd have to scream at them, get the hell away from me, because they would think I was stuck with the weight because I was going so slow and deliberately with the weight and controlling it so well. I succeeded because of that. When I try to use sloppy form and just move weight that I couldn't handle, I always hurt myself and strain things, because I wasn't a genetic freak in that way. The reason why I succeeded, that's why a lot of people like to listen to what I have to say about how I got so big, because I didn't have the genetics for putting size on. I created the scientific conditions to enable myself to get big. That means I ate a tremendous amount of food. I took the right, drug supplements, the drugs and supplements, and I used very good exercise form and high intensity, and I pushed myself in the gym. And when you put all that together, you can't help but succeed. Once again, I was still stuck by whatever my genetic structure was, but I was able to add muscle and I was able to get in shape because of science. And that's what you guys need to understand. Always stick to science, because you know what? Your results will always be better. They'll always be better than if you don't use science. If you just wing it, chances are you will fail. The genetically gifted, Dexter Jackson at that seminar this past week and said to me, you know what? He said to the audience, for most of his career, he ate McDonald's twice a day. That was his meals in the off season. And he always put size on and always looked good. As he got older, it didn't work anymore. And that's when he was thinking about retiring. And that's when, he had hired George Farah. It wasn't that George Farah was some kind of genius. George put him on a regimented schedule of eating clean foods 6 times a day, and all of a sudden his body started responding again. Okay? He was an example of a guy who succeeded despite himself. Now that he's doing things right, he's succeeding even better at an older age. Imagine that. Imagine what he would have looked like had he been doing that when he was younger.
Let's go to Brian Fedak. Now, you were just talking about genetics. His question is exactly about that. He says he's a teen and people think he has extreme potential in bodybuilding, but he also has in mind that elite genetics are needed for elite bodybuilders. How could I tell if I have the right genetics or not?
The right genetics with regard to bodybuilding really has to do with mindset more than anything else. Because, and I always say this, anyone can build muscle and anyone can get in shape. What your genetic structure is underneath all that, that's what your parents gave you. That's something that you can't buy, you can't build. It is what it is, I didn't have super wide shoulders. I compensated by putting a lot of muscle mass on my delts, but I didn't have the wide shoulders of Jay Cutler. It wasn't that, I had shoulder to waist issues on stage. It wasn't that my waist was big. It looked big in comparison to the width of my shoulders. Jay Cutler doesn't have a small waist, but his shoulders are double the width of most people. So it gave him the illusion of having a good taper. So the genetics of your structure you can't really do anything about. But when people ask me, hey, can I be a professional bodybuilder? I say yes. And they say, but you didn't even look at me. I said, it doesn't matter. If that's something that you want, I'm never going to tell you no. Just like when people ask me, well, how much weight am I going to gain on this off-season program I'm doing with you? I'm like, I'm not going to give you a number, because as soon as I give you that number, that's where you're going to stop, okay? Keep it unlimited, okay? Don't put boundaries on yourself. Do what you're passionate about. If you want to be a top-level bodybuilder, train like you have the genetics to be the greatest of all time. Because you know what? That will enable you to I guess you could say, embrace all the gifts that you do have. I've seen guys go from nothing to being amazing, and they didn't even know they had it in them. Look at Flex Wheeler when he was a kid. He looked like a skinny little, nothing. He looked like he couldn't even make he just told me a story this past weekend, he couldn't even make the football team. His dad was the freaking football coach. So his dad would send him to the weight room every day. He's like, look, you got to come to practice with me. I got to watch you. You go work out in the weight room. I'm going to conduct football practice. And that's what turned him into a great bodybuilder, because he couldn't play football. So you never know what you got inside you.
Let's go to Brooks Clark on our Instagram feed. Dave, when you were a competitive bodybuilder, what was the highest your testosterone levels got?
As far as, I don't know if he's asking me as far as what I was taking or on blood work. You got to understand something about blood work. Most blood labs don't measure over a certain amount. So if you're let's say you're taking 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week, that could equate to 5 or 10,000 on a testosterone test, blood work. But it might not show up because the blood work might only go up to 2,000 or 3,000. So that's not really a good way to equate. As far as how much I injected, the most testosterone I ever took a week was 1,200 milligrams a week. Anytime I ever tried more than that, I always felt like crap. And I realized that I didn't need to take more than that. That was my ceiling. And you know what I find? That I don't think many people need more than that. Most people that take more than 1,200 milligrams a week, it's either they're taking fake stuff, or if they're taking the real stuff, they feel like absolute crap, because it gives you the flu. What happens is when you have too much in your system, your immune system starts to attack the stuff as being a foreign body. And when that happens, it feels like you get flu-like symptoms from that. And that's not a good way to feel all the time. Who the hell wants to feel like they have the flu all the time? Obviously, the body's rejecting all that testosterone you're putting into it. Don't overload. You use that's why I recommend certain dosages. It's not that I'm conservative. I know what works. I know what you need to take as far as, what's enough to stimulate maximal muscle gains, okay, without taking too much that you're going to get side effects. And I think that range is around 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a week.
Let's take one from our Facebook inbox. Vanessa Andrea Lopez. Dave, I was watching your videos on the stem cell treatment you got done. I really appreciated this, as I'm going through a tough time with shoulder pain, arthritis. This pain has got me to the point where I don't even feel alive at times, depressed. I'm looking for options. I don't want to do surgery until I've tried everything out there. My question to you was, I would like to know if the stem cell treatment ended up working for you. I know you did a video series on this, so unless you want to release the spoilers, if you want to answer in a different way, but she basically wants to know if stem cell is a viable option instead of surgery, in your opinion.
In my case, it did not work. I'm still in a lot of pain, more so when I'm moving than anything. My left shoulder is a lot worse than my right one, because I think I have some bone spurs on that one. And I'm not happy. I'm looking into options of possible shoulder replacement in the future. I'm not looking to do it immediately, but I'm exploring right now the possibilities of that. I did speak to my good friend John Enrico Pica this past weekend, who was the promoter of the San Marino Pro, and he told me he went someplace in Arizona and he got stem cells injected into his shoulder, a lot of them, and he said it helped him. He got his knee and his shoulder done, and he's out of pain, and he's squatting and shoulder pressing again. So I don't know if my shoulders are just really bad. I don't know if the doctor I went to wasn't doing it right. My friend Victor Prisk, who's an orthopedic surgeon, said that the doctor who was injecting the stem cells into my shoulder wasn't putting them in the right place. So I don't know if that was the case or not. I happen to think my shoulders, I needed a shoulder replacement 10 years ago. I happen to just be a very crafty, veteran. I can go to the gym and I can train around injuries, and I don't really complain that much about it. But so maybe mine is too far gone. I don't know. Every orthopedic that's looked at my shoulders kind of cringed at the X-rays. So the only people who seem to have hope are the people who are doing the stem cell treatments, and those doctors obviously have a vested interest in doing them because they're going to make money, and it's an easy procedure. So I don't know. I guess you got to see how bad your shoulders are. I would go see some of these stem cell guys. I can, if anyone privately emails me, I can send them the name of the clinic that Dennis James used. That John Enrico used in Arizona. But like I said, I don't know. It's not a proven science yet. I think in the future that will be the cure-all for everything, stem cell injections. This guy also John Enrico had him in his back even done, and he said it helped his back pain. So I don't know. It's something still worth investigating. I wouldn't discount it completely.
We have one here where you might be able to reveal some secrets of NFL players. Obviously, you're not going to mention any names. Question is from Shelox23 from Spain. Question is, do you know the roid usage that NFL players use? If you do, have you ever met an NFL player that has told you their cycles?
Well, you got to understand, first of all, that NFL players get tested regularly, okay? And the bigger they are, the more they get tested. And I've worked with guys in the past. Well, if any of you guys know Bob Sapp was playing in the NFL back in the day when they first started drug testing. And, he failed a couple tests, and he was taking very, very minute amounts of stuff and just to keep up. And then he wound up going over to, Japan and fighting, and MMA fighting, and he became a superstar over there. But, I mean, they test these guys a lot. So whatever they're using, it's not a lot of stuff. Most guys are afraid to use anything. I think there's probably more growth hormone usage in the NFL because even though they say they got a test for it, no one really has a good test for it. So I think that's probably what they're using more for recovery purposes. I don't think it's as rampant as people think, because of the fact that they do test these players a lot. However, I think in football, they only test them once before the season, and then they don't test them anymore during the season. So there's obviously always loopholes. I would think, without me giving away anything, that most guys would stick with fast-acting testosterones, even maybe test patches and stuff like that. So the amounts are not a lot, but it's enough that it can get in and out of the system quickly. No one's taken Deca and Equipoise that have metabolites that are going to last for 18 months in their body. That would be ludicrous. It would be stupid and ridiculous to do that. But every once in a while, I think it's more a case of if they suspect someone looks like they're using them or someone rats out someone, they'll test that guy. But once again, it's Russian roulette. When you're making a couple $1 million a year, do you really want to risk it on taking something you're going to get caught? So I think a lot of guys are using more growth hormone since that's easier to get away with. That's just my opinion. I don't know for sure. I don't know anyone who's using, I don't know one guy who's using insane cycles. It's impossible because these guys will get caught.
One last question. It is from Jacked and Juicy. Dave, what are you afraid of?
That's a good question. What am I afraid of? Death. I think we're all afraid of death. But although I've become more at ease with it, I don't want to die. But I realize that I conceptually realize that when I do die, I'm not really dying. I'm kind of just transitioning to the next step. I don't think our souls are eternal. I know there's no death. Our bodies might die, but our who we are is still around, and we'll move to the next stage of our evolution. The problem is that I'm kind of enjoying myself in my body right now, at least for now I am, so I really don't want to leave. So I guess we all fear death. I mean, anyone who says they don't fear death is crazy, and lying. Maybe the only people who really don't fear death are people who had near-death experiences already, and maybe they kind of experience what it's like, but most people don't, I think, will say that they fear death. I don't really fear anything else, to be honest with you, because I'm pretty confident in who I am. No one wants to get sick, but you can't, if you walk around thinking about being sick all the time, guess what? You're going to get sick. You'll attract sickness to you. So I don't think about that. I don't think about death. I think about all the things that give me pleasure in life, all the things that I'm passionate about, because I want more of that. And what you get what you think about, whether you want it or not. So don't think about what you don't want. That's the best advice I can give you.
On that note, that is going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. Reminder, tomorrow on RxMuscle.com and on our YouTube channel, a one-on-one chat with Dave and Dennis James from San Marino this past weekend. That's going to be available again on RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, subscribe. You're not going to miss any of our content. Till next week, for Dave Palumbo and Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good one.